Dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to the second edition of Newslink. First, the headlines. Security experts in Nigeria criticize slow response to the worsening situation in Benue State.
These measures have been announced not once, not twice. What it's beginning to look like is the moment we have a spike in any part of the state, we hear the same measures.
Opposition political groups in Guinea reject creation of a new election management body by the junta.
Nous le disons et nous insistons.
We say it and we insist that we need an organization of elections. That is to say, a totally independent Seni. That's clear. Under no circumstances can we go to elections without taking part in the decisions made.
Togo suspend French broadcasters RFI and France 24 over alleged bias in reporting, and the Gambia River Basin Development Organization presents Development Master Plan. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Nigeria, as the federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to ending the cycle of violence in north-central Benue State and ensuring justice for victims of the latest deadly attacks. The country's Inspector General Police, Seconde, arrived in the state on Monday to meet with Governor Hyacinth Alia. They, alongside other senior federal and state officials, assessed the situation firsthand. WDL's Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja has more details in his report.
The Inspector General of Police was received at the Benue State Government House before proceeding to Yelwata, the border community attacked over the weekend. Kayode Egbetokun commiserated with victims and assured residents of the police force's commitment to boost security.
We are going to continue to work tirelessly with you and in close synergy with other security agencies to ensure that peace, lasting peace, return to Benue State.
In response, Governor Hyacinth Alia commended the federal government and security agencies for their prompt action, but urged intensified efforts to protect vulnerable communities across Benue.
I believe your visit is going to uplift our spirits and build within us formidable assurance of the fact that we are not alone and you continue to be there for us and to support and to do this journey together with us.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu, whose office has announced measures over the rising threat, is expected in Benue State on Wednesday, June 18.
The leadership and people of Benue should accept our condolences and tried hard, very, very consciously, to maintain peace, harmony among themselves.
During the visit, the head of state will hold a town hall meeting with key stakeholders, including politicians, traditional and religious leaders, community heads, and youth and women groups to chart a path toward lasting peace in the state. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
Staying in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu is scheduled to visit Benue State on Wednesday, June 18, to sympathize with residents over the recent massacre. Ahead of the visit, Tinubu is in a statement by presidential spokesperson Bayo Ononuga, highlighted immediate security measures to forestall further carnage. These include intensifying stakeholder engagement, advancing border surveillance, boosting intelligence sharing among neighboring states, and increasing deployment of tactical squads. The latter was immediately accomplished upon the arrival of the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, in Benue on Monday. But do these measures have the potential for lasting peace? Omale Orokpo, Public and Security Affairs Analyst, responds.
These measures have been announced not once, not twice. What it's beginning to look like is the moment we have a spike in any part of the state, we hear the same measures being put forward by the president or the federal authorities. The aspect that I feel is critical for the state now is, number one, the deployment of more tactical forces in the state to checkmate the marauding bandits and suspected herdsmen. If we can have a quantum leap, so to say, in the number of tactical forces deployed to the state, I think it is going to help a lot. Well, it's a good thing the president, has asked the governor to intensify efforts in the stakeholder meetings and all that. And I think if that is done, it is going to help. If we have a decentralized police force, that is directly under the control of governors, with people recruited from the various local government areas, people who know the terrain, people who were born and bred and, live in those communities and all that, I think it will, to a great extent, check the rampant cases of attacks on our various communities.
Omale Orokpo is a public and security affairs analyst. In electoral news now, the Guinean Transition Authority has commissioned a new election management body. Established by presidential decree over the weekend, the General Directorate of Elections is tasked with organizing the referendum and then the elections. The DG thus replaces the National Independent Electoral Commission (SENI). The new institution, placed under the supervision of the Ministry of Territorial Administration, has already been rejected by the opposition. Opponents see it as a body entirely under the control of the state, designed to keep the military in power. Seconde Janko completes the story.
20 years later, the organization of elections has returned to the Ministry of Territorial Administration via the General Directorate of Elections. The heads of the new DGE will be appointed by the presidency, a decision that angers the political opposition. Opponents are already questioning the independence of this body responsible for organizing elections in Guinea. The configuration of the General Electorate of Elections does not comply with the conclusions of the 22 political dialogue, says Mohamed Sise, spokesperson for the National Hope and Development Party.
The operational management team should organize the referendum to provide the country with a constitution. From there, constitutional institutions should be established, including an independent technical body for election management. It is this body that should, in principle, take charge of the future, along with an observatory composed of competitors to ensure the transparency of the electoral process.
Opponents, united within the forces VIVs, are calling on the government to review the configuration of the new General Directorate of Elections. They have also threatened to disrupt the process of organizing the referendum and elections. Rafiuso is president of PRP party.
We say it and we insist, we even persist, that we need an organization of elections, that is to say, a totally independent SENI. That's clear. Under no circumstances can we go to elections without taking part in the decisions made. And we cannot allow elections to be held here without this. We will not allow ballot boxes or anything else to be held in our neighborhood if we don't sit down and discuss it. That's clear.
The Guinean transitional government months ago promised to hold the much anticipated election by the end of the year. A position political observers are doubtful of amid the existing socio-political tension.
That was a report by our Conakry correspondent Cherno Ibrahim Abadi and voiced by Seconde Janko.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Elsewhere, Togo has approved the candidate list for the municipal election scheduled for July 2025. The July 17 election is comprised of 494 candidate lists. Recall that this approval for the earlier scheduled July 10 ballot by political parties and civil society forced the government to postpone the election to allow for better preparations. Among other concerns raised was the increased number of councillors, which has since been suspended by the Electoral Commission. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The 494 candidates lists were announced on Monday, following approval by the Administrative Chamber of Togo's Supreme Court last week. The Apex Court in a publication declared the list as final and valid. The lists were selected after the review of 520 applications submitted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, (SENI). Of the total number of applications submitted, 26 were rejected, including 25 from opposition parties and independent groups. The rejected files were marked by several irregularities, such as the presentation of candidates with minimum requirements, those with dual citizenship and lists, whose number of candidates is above the required threshold. Upon this declaration, Seni says electoral official campaigns are set to begin on July 1 and will last for 2 weeks across Togo's 5 regions and 39 prefectures. Over the weekend, the electoral umpire conducted a random drawing for the positioning of the list on the ballot papers. Seni also said it had received some of the electoral materials, including the indelible ink. The municipal elections in Togo will take place under a tense political climate characterized by protest and denunciation by youths, opposition groups, and citizens alike of the current state of governance.
Francis Boniface filed that report. Meanwhile, Togo has suspended broadcasts by 2 French state-owned media outlets, Radio France International, RFI, and France 24, for 3 months, citing alleged violations of journalistic standards. According to the country's high authority for audiovisual communication, the suspension follows repeated failures by both networks to uphold impartiality, accuracy, and fact-checking in their reporting. The agency claims that recent broadcasts contain biased or false information that undermined national institutions and damaged Togo's image. However, no specific reports or examples were cited in the statement. This move comes amid growing political tension as President Faure Gnassingbé faces mounting criticism over constitutional reforms, widely seen as a bid to extend his rule indefinitely. Opponents have labeled the reforms a constitutional coup. In Mali, Montagatal responded to the endorsement of a 5-year renewable term to transitional president General Assimi Goïta. Speaking following the dissolution of political parties, Tal expressed his opposition to this decision and urged General Goïta to reverse it. He also proposed a series of measures to end the transition. Augustin Kohli has details in this report by our Bamako correspondent, Aliu Cham.
Since the political parties' discussion, Montagatal has been increasingly critical of the military transition on his Facebook page. Speaking in the national language Bambara, the former Minister of Higher Education and Member of Parliament denounced the bill extending the duration of the military transition by 5 renewable years. Montagatal presented a document in which he proposed a way out of the crisis. Another political figure to react to the extension of the military transition was Moussa Mara. This decision is a concern for the future of Mali, declared the former Prime Minister, calling on the authorities to reconsider their position. The bill extending the duration of the transition will be submitted for approval in the coming days to the National Transitional Council. It should be noted that 2 other AES member countries, Niger and Burkina Faso, have adopted similar decrees extending the military transitions for General Abdourahmane Chiani and Captain Ibrahim Traoré, respectively.
Our Bamako correspondent Aliu Cham has filed in a report and voiced by Augustin Kohli. Well, staying in Mali, there's a new twist in the trial involving the purchase of the presidential plane and military equipment in 2014. Now, the defense lawyers are raising the issue of the lack of jurisdiction of the special court, which has been hearing this case for several months. Several former and military figures and civilians are on trial for embezzlement of over 130 billion CFA francs. The hearing will resume this Tuesday after recess last week will allow the court to rule on the matter. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
The defense lawyers are asking the court to declare itself incompetent and discontinue its judgment in the case concerning the purchase of the presidential plane and military equipment, which dates back to 2014. The argument put forward is the entry into force of the new Code of Criminal Procedure on June 13, following its adoption in December 2024. This new Code of Criminal Procedure abolishes the special court, which is now to be replaced by criminal chambers at the level of the High Court. Defense lawyers say they have filed a petition with the first president of the Supreme Court seeking a declaration that the special court lacks jurisdiction to try the former Minister of Economy, Buhari Fili Sissoko, and other former officials prosecuted for the alleged embezzlement of 130 billion CFA francs funds intended for the purchase of the presidential plane and military equipment in 2014. In response to the defense, the prosecution has requested the establishment of a transitional panel to continue the trial. The hearing, which was suspended on Monday, is scheduled to resume this Tuesday. The court will rule on whether or not it lacks jurisdiction to continue to try this case. All the defendants in this case, including the last to speak last week, have pleaded not guilty.
Abdullah filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Security experts in Nigeria criticized the response to the worsening security situation in Benue State. Opposition political groups in Guinea reject creation of a new election management body by the junta. Togo suspend French broadcasters RFI and France 24 over alleged bias in reporting. Still ahead in the news, the Gambia River Basin Development Organization presents Development Master Plan. We do have the press review, a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and full live streams on YouTube and Facebook. Now, 3 river basins across the Gambia, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau and Guinea are set to get a facelift on various social-economic projects. This will be achieved through the Integrated Development Master Plan by the Gambia River Basin Development Organization, OMVG. Christopher Teacher was at the launch of the project here in Dakar and filed in this report.
The plan, titled Integrated Development Master Plan by the Gambia River Basin Development Organization, OMVG, stretches from 2023 to 2040. A total of $7.95 billion is required for the implementation of the project across River Gambia, Kayanga Giba, and Koliba Kuribao. An estimated 6.6 million people from these member countries will benefit from the project upon completion. Other projects are in the field of energy, basic services such as urban and rural water supply, governance, environment and ecosystem. Demba Diallo is the commissioner of the OMVG.
It's a very diverse master plan and we developed this investment component of it. But again, out of the investment component, we have 179 projects that are identified. 26 of them are the priority project. Among these priority projects, some have already started rolling out because we've started studies for some of these projects and we hope to mobilize the financial resources. That is the objective of this forum. And there are commitments. We hope the partners will be able to come and join us and fund this project.
Gambia's Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Rohi John Manjan, expressed strong political will to attract investor interests.
This is a political directive, so we hope and look forward to strengthening our partners between the OMVG and the development partners to make sure that the master plan and other OMVG activities are implemented for our sustainable development targets.
Laura Munoz Perez, the regional team lead for the UN Capital Development Fund in West and Central Africa and the Caribbean, expressed the fund's commitment to supporting the project.
With the support of UNCDF, ONVG has developed its own master plan, investment master plan. Now we are supporting them in this process, in this journey to mobilize funding.
The Gambia River Development Organization, OMVG, is a sub-regional cooperation and integration organization that brings together Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea and Senegal for trans-border development.
Christopher Teacher filed that report. In Liberia, the ECOWAS Parliament has kicked off a week-long dialogue aimed at evaluating the region's investment strategies to tackle the high unemployment rates. The discussions, which began on Monday in Monrovia, the capital, form part of the activities of the 6th Legislature's Joint Committee on Administration, Finance, Macroeconomic Policy, Research and Public Accounts within the regional framework. From Monrovia, WDL's Abraham Parker report.
During the opening remarks, Senator Edwin Snow, the head of Liberia's dedication, emphasized that youth unemployment in the region is more than just an economic issue. In his words, it threatens social cohesion, peace, and migration patterns. Also speaking, Alaji Dapo, chairman of the Joint Committee on Administration, Finance, Macroeconomic Policy, Research and Public of the ECOWAS Parliament, pledged the committee's willingness.
We are here to listen, to learn, and to lead the charge for reforms that ensure that investment is more impactful in the lives of our community citizens, to deliberate proper recommendations that will help attract quality investments, drive innovations, and ensure job creation in our region.
For her part, the president pro tempore of the Liberian Senate, Nyombli Kanga Lawrence, expressed concern over the alarming rise of youth unemployment across the region, warning that West Africa's youth toll is nearing some of the highest levels globally.
Economic growth and peace are intertwined. By addressing unemployment, we are not only investing in our economies, but we are also investing in peace, in dignity, and the future of our young people.
The conference honored the theme assessing the effectiveness of the ECOWAS investment policy intended to address rising levels of unemployment in the sub-region, aims to identify gaps within existing investment opportunities in West Africa. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we'll join Zankli Janko for the newspaper review and the Gambia.
Today's press review in the Gambia begins with the Point newspaper. And the lead story on the Point newspaper reads, Justice Jaita warns DPP, says wasting court's time unacceptable. Gambia, 35 other countries face potential U.S. travel ban. This other one read, government response to economic concerns raised in Point editorial. 21 witnesses to testify in El Hilal alleged armed robbery case. MPs slam finance minister over budget report gaps, submission delay. Let's move on to the Foreign newspaper today, and the lead story on the Foreign newspaper is related to economic matters, and it reads, Gambia spends over $8.13 billion in first court. Speaker urges lawmakers to renew commitment to public duty. This other one reads, Justice Ministry challenges subpoena for senior state officials. ECOWAS Parliament evaluates investment policy amid rising unemployment concerns. George warns prison officers against handcuffing accused in court. Rape trial nears conclusion as High Court sets judgment date for July. Let's take a look at the final newspaper for today, and that is the Standard newspaper. And it reads, NCCE urged Assembly to ensure clarity on presidential term limits. State seeks to prevent government and security officials from testifying in PIU shooting trial. $2.3 billion is spent on personal emoluments. That's another story. And this other one reads, Gambia's foreign reserves stand at $508.54 million. And finally, RNG commander urges soldiers to be loyal to the states. These are the major stories on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you.
Many thanks, Uncle Janko.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment, we keep a tab on Nigeria. Security experts have expressed concern over the slow response to the worsening security situation in the north-central state of Benue. As security rages in the state, concerns are mounting also over the future of food and job security. Since the start of the year, hundreds of people, predominantly farmers, have been killed on farmlands, and thousands from 17 local government areas of Benue and have been displaced. Many of the victims include women and children. Victims point at herders for the attacks, who they claim have grabbed their lands, but the state government blames mercenaries from neighboring West African nations. Momlas, chairperson of Bengonet, a coalition of over 200 NGOs in Benue State, explaining the root causes of the crisis, recommends strengthening cross-border surveillance, improving intelligence sharing, and establishing state police to end insecurity in the region. He's our guest.
Of course, we know that these conflicts stem from the struggle for grazing fields, struggle for water points, struggle for protection of land or right to land and all of that. So this has been the major point of difference between the farmers and the herders. In Benue, for example, we had been having a relative peace between farmers and herders pre-2017. So from 2017 backwards, down to 2016, 15, 14, thereabout, down the line, there had been relative peace. But it wasn't completely rancor-free. Of course, there are moments where issues of violence occur, but not with so much of intensity and not so much of a continuous measure as it is now. So post-2017, it now became a more intensified and more consistent wave of attacks.
What are some of the reasons beyond the fact that there is a competition for natural resources, water points, and grazing lands, like you said?
Yeah, so for Benue, I know that one of the turning points, one of the major reasons that brought about the new wave of conflict was the signing into law of the open grazing prohibition law. If you recall, the law was passed in June 2016, and so by October of that year, the law came into force, where the governor said, the then governor, Samuel Otom, set up a livestock protection guard. So the job of the livestock protection guard then was to go around the state, keep a surveillance to ensure that the law was observed strictly.
So violators will be sanctioned.
And violators to be sanctioned. And of course, that's what they were doing. So between October and December, there was relative peace of 2016. Then, January 1st, 2017, there was massive attack. From then up to today, up to that, even now as we speak, there has been waves and waves and waves and waves of attacks. In fact, since the beginning of this 2025, there has been an unprecedented wave of attacks.
There have been arguments from different sections or quarters of the population that the current wave of attacks or insecurity in the North Central region, precisely Benue State, has a more political undertone to it.
One cannot completely rule out cases of maybe political undertones. But then again, you can't also rely so much on that because there is no evidence to back that up. Or if you say, oh, it's political undertones, so someone will say, okay, so who are the political gladiators that are, or who are the political figures that are fueling the crisis? And then you start scratching your head. But then, for us in the civil society, we are not so much bothered about who is fueling what. We are more bothered about how are the security agencies living up to this challenge.
Are they living up to the challenges?
If you ask me, I would say not so very much. Not so very much in the sense that since 2017 up to date, when this crisis has become very, very violent and consistent, I have not seen where anybody has been arrested. Where they will say, oh, we arrested 10 bandits yesterday that attacked XY village. Oh, we arrested 5 people that attacked this village. Personally, I have not, and I stand to be corrected. So they attack, they kill, they destroy, they go scot-free. Nobody's arrested, nobody's prosecuted, and that's it.
Momlas is the chairperson of Ben Gonet, a coalition of over 200 NGOs in Benue. And in sport news, the Ghana Football Association GFA has officially scheduled the 2025 Champion of Champions match for Sunday, August 31, 2025, marking the ceremonial kickoff of the 2025-26 Ghana Premier League season. The one-off fixture is in accordance with Article 9 of the Premier League regulations, which will see reigning Premier League champions Gold Stars face off MTN FA Cup holders Ashanti Kotoko as they vie for early season supremacy and silverware. Meanwhile, Esperance Sportive de Tunis kicked off the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup campaign with a 2-0 loss to Brazil Flamengo on June 16 at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, USA. Despite strong fan support, the Tunis side struggled, managing just 31% possession and 2 shots on target. Flamengo scored through De Arquesta and Luis Araújo. Other African teams in the tournament include Al Ahly of Egypt, Wydad Casablanca, Morocco, and Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa. And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Falilu So and Maudoju for the technical support. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many